Hello, I'm Rabble, and there's a weight I've been carrying. A truth I've held close for far too long. Before you form an opinion, I invite you to hear my tale. Never did I imagine I would encounter a scenario such as this, and I continue to grapple with the bewildering speed at which everything unraveled. A haunting memory lingers, a moment orchestrated by my husband that irrevocably altered the trajectory of my life. It began several years ago. My husband Jube and I had been united in marriage for nearly a decade. Like many couples, we experienced our share of highs and lows. Yet I never anticipated this turn of events. Jube was a man filled with love, yet as time passed, an unseen shift began to unfold. He grew increasingly distant, adopting a more controlling demeanor while showing less affection. I attempted to brush it aside, convincing myself it was merely the pressure of my job. Yet beneath the surface, I was acutely aware that something was amiss. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Jube returned from work, radiating an unusual energy that filled the air with intrigue. He appeared remarkably cheerful, yet there was an almost disquieting quality in the way his gaze lingered on me. We shared our evening meal as we typically do, and just as I was preparing to tidy up the table, he beckoned me to take a seat. His tone carried a weight of seriousness, compelling me to comply. My heart began to race, an instinctual awareness dawning that this conversation would transcend the ordinary. "I've been pondering," he began, his gaze drifting away from me. "I have something important to convey to you." I nodded, anticipation building within me as I awaited his next words. Yet what came next was far from what I had envisioned. He confided in me his desire to invigorate our relationship, expressing a sense of monotony that had settled in. He believed it was the right moment for us to explore new avenues together. Initially, I assumed he was suggesting a romantic escape, or perhaps some therapy to reignite the flame. However, what he proposed was quite the opposite. "I have made arrangements for us to meet with two gentlemen," he stated with unmistakable clarity. "They're coming over this weekend." I gazed at him, perplexed by the direction of his thoughts. Uncertainty gripped me. Was he jesting or subjecting me to some twisted trial? Yet, the gravity of his expression left no room for doubt. A knot formed in my stomach, and a surge of nausea enveloped me. "What do you mean by two men?" I inquired, my voice scarcely rising above a whisper. "They're friends of mine," he remarked, attempting to maintain a nonchalant demeanor as though this were entirely ordinary. "We shall share the night in their company." Words failed me. My hands shook with uncertainty as I struggled to grasp the meaning behind his words. This was not the man I married. This was not the man I had promised to share my life with. He spoke of inviting two strangers into our home, into our marriage, as if it were a trivial matter. The mere thought of it churned my stomach. Yet beyond that, a sense of betrayal washed over me. How could he possibly propose such a thing? "Jube, have you lost your senses?" At last I found the words, my voice trembling with a blend of disbelief and fury. "This does not reflect who we are. What could possibly compel you to?" Yet, just as I was about to conclude, he interrupted me. "Rachel, this is happening," he declared, his voice cutting through the air. "It is essential for you to grasp this concept. It is a desire I hold dear, a necessity we require." It was almost unimaginable, the words that reached my ears. My affection for Jube ran deep, yet I found myself perplexed by his insistence on steering me towards something so humiliating. A moment that seemed poised to fracture the very foundation of what we had created together. I firmly expressed my refusal, stating that I would not proceed with it. I believed that would mark the conclusion of the matter, that he would finally see reason and abandon the notion. Yet I found myself mistaken. In the days that followed, Jube began to withdraw further into himself. He rarely engaged in conversation with me unless it pertained to the plan. He began to arrive home in the late hours, and when I inquired about his whereabouts, his responses were shrouded in ambiguity. The air between us grew heavy, and the warmth that once enveloped our home faded into an oppressive stillness. A sense of entrapment enveloped me, leaving me feeling solitary and bewildered. How did our marriage arrive at this point? As Friday approached, a heavy dread took root deep within my chest. Jube remained steadfast in his belief that the meeting would take place, regardless of my objections. I contemplated the idea of departure, envisioning myself gathering my belongings and stepping out into the unknown. However, I did not. Reluctantly, I found myself clinging to the remnants of the man I once believed I understood. I wish for this to be merely a fleeting moment in time, a matter we might navigate together. I found myself unprepared to cast aside the life we had built together. Yet, I found myself unable to endure the mere idea of following through with his scheme. Saturday evening descended upon us with surprising swiftness. The men whom Jube referred to as friends arrived right on time at 8 p.m. I settled onto the couch, fingers tightly intertwined in my lap, battling the urge to let the tears fall. Unfamiliar faces filled my living room, engaging in conversation with my husband as though they were longtime friends, their names still a mystery to me. The atmosphere was laden with an electric tension, and I sensed their gaze fixed upon me. Observing, anticipating. The desire to vanish consumed me, to dash from the house and never cast a glance behind. Yet, in that moment, Jube leaned closer, his hand gently finding its place on my knee. "Rabble, the moment has arrived," he murmured softly. I stood paralyzed, my thoughts urging me to rise and flee, yet my body remained stubbornly still. Jube's hand rested heavily on my knee, a steadfast anchor that held me firmly in place. My gaze was averted from him, and the presence of the two men opposite me made it impossible to meet their eyes as well. My heart raced within my chest, and the walls of the room appeared to constrict around me. "Rabble, if you would be so kind," Jube repeated, his voice dropping to a near whisper, tinged with desperation. His tone held a quality that caused me to hesitate. It transcended mere insistence. It was a profound sense of desperation. After days of watching him, I finally caught a glimpse of vulnerability in his eyes. This transcended mere gratification of a perverse desire for him. It revolved around control, power, and an elusive essence that remained just beyond my grasp. Yet, that did not render it just. Everything about this seemed off. "I can't do this, Jube," I finally whispered, my voice trembling. "This does not reflect our true selves." With a deep sigh, he reclined into his seat. He pressed his fingers against his temples, a gesture of exasperation washing over him. "Do you really believe I desire this?" he murmured, his words drifting into the air, seemingly intended for his own ears rather than mine. "This is for both of us, Rabble. Do you not understand that?" "Indeed, that is not the case," I retorted, discovering a glimmer of resilience within me. "This journey is for your own sake. There's a shift in you, Jube. This has transcended our concerns. It revolves around mastery." For an instant, I believed I caught a glimpse of guilt flicker across his features, yet it vanished as swiftly as it appeared. Instead, he tightened his jaw and rose to his feet, moving restlessly around the room like a soul adrift. I felt compelled to make contact with him, to draw him back to the man I once recognized. Yet, I found myself at a loss for the way forward. We had drifted so far from our beginnings, and uncertainty loomed over whether we could ever retrace our steps. As the silence lingered in the air, one of the men, whom we shall refer to as Thomas, broke the stillness with a deliberate clearing of his throat. He appeared to perceive the tension, yet an unmistakable impatience lingered around him. "Listen," he said, his voice steady yet resolute. "If this isn't unfolding as expected, it may be wise for us to take our leave." I lifted my gaze to him, and in that moment I truly observed him for the first time. He defied my expectations. He exuded a calmness, a respectful air, and his demeanor appeared more sympathetic than I had envisioned. I had constructed a notion in my mind that these men were predators, yet they proved otherwise. They were merely individuals. In a curious twist that only deepened the perplexity of the entire situation. I had no desire to remain. I found myself reluctant to engage in the unfolding chaos that was taking shape. Yet, the burden of it all, the years spent with Jube, the love we once knew, the flickering hope that perhaps in some way we could return to the way things were, held me in place. Uncertainty enveloped me, leaving me at a loss for direction. I found myself ensnared, gasping for breath beneath the weight of my own uncertainty. Then Jube spoke, his voice soft yet unwavering. "Rachel, should you choose to walk away, it will mark the end for us." The words struck me with the force of a blow to the abdomen. My gaze fell upon him, a wave of disbelief washing over me as I struggled to grasp the weight of his words. He had etched a boundary in the sand, compelling me to decide on which side I would take my stand. Tears threatened to spill from my eyes, yet I fought them back, determined not to reveal my vulnerability to him. I've given you everything, he continued, his voice unwavering yet frigid. I have cared for you, cherished you, and now all I seek in exchange is this one simple thing. I rose to my feet, my legs trembling yet resolute. This isn't love, Jube, I murmured, my voice scarcely rising above a whisper. This is a form of manipulation. His eyes ignited with fury. Yet I remained indifferent. This was beyond my capabilities. This is not something I would choose to do. I pivoted towards the door, bracing myself for his shout, for his hands to seize me, for an attempt to halt my departure. Yet he did not. Instead, I caught his words barely audible, a low murmur that hinted at a threat. You'll regret this. Perhaps I might. Perhaps departing was an error in judgment. Yet, in that instant I realized I must turn away. I refused to allow Jube, or anyone else, to push me into a situation that made me uneasy. Upon stepping outside, the crisp evening air brushed against my skin, stirring within me an unusual blend of solace and sorrow. My legs propelled me along the street, while my thoughts surged like a tempest. Where might my journey lead me? What course of action should I take? Answers eluded me, leaving behind a profound feeling of betrayal and an aching sense of loss. After what seemed like an eternity of wandering, I finally stood before the familiar facade of my best friend Sarah's house. I rapped gently on the door, hoping against hope that she was inside. As she swung the door open and beheld my face marked by tears, she refrained from uttering a single question. She enveloped me in a warm embrace and guided me through the door. In the days that followed, I remained with Sarah, grappling with the whirlwind of events that had unfolded. A profound emptiness enveloped me, as if a fragment of my very being had been wrenched from my soul. Though I felt a pang of longing for Jube, I understood deep down that returning was not an option. The harm was irrevocable, and the shattered pieces lay beyond the reach of restoration. Jube attempted to reach me several times, leaving a series of voicemails that fluctuated between remorseful and irate. He was a whirlwind of feelings, and I found myself struggling to follow the ebb and flow of his ever-changing emotions. Ignoring his calls became a habit, and in time, he ceased his attempts to reach me. As the months unfolded, I embarked on the journey of reconstructing my life, step by step, with unwavering determination. I initiated the process of divorce, fully aware that our union had reached a point of no return. The decision weighed heavily on my heart, a burden unlike any I had faced before. Yet ultimately, it proved to be the correct choice. I found it impossible to remain in a relationship that subjected me to manipulation and coerced me into circumstances that contradicted my core beliefs. Occasionally, Jube crosses my mind, and I ponder the life we might have shared had circumstances unfolded differently. Yet, I have come to understand that I am worthy of more. I seek a love founded on trust, respect, and mutual understanding, rather than one marred by control and manipulation.